Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolute ultimate survival guide for acing your university exams completely without burning out. We've pulled together some truly fascinating data, fresh research, and highly practical strategies that are tailored specifically to Australian universities. The goal here is simple, helping us all study smarter, not just harder. So, let's jump right in.
I actually want to kick things off by asking a question that might completely change how you look at your study desk right now. Are you studying harder but not smarter? It sounds crazy, but research from the University of Western Australia reveals that simply rereading your notes and highlighting text are actually some of the least effective study strategies you can use. Seriously, that perfectly color-coded highlighted page? It might just be tricking your brain into feeling productive without actually locking in any of that knowledge.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The Aussie exam system. 2. Hacks for high-yield study. 3. Supercharging with spaced repetition. 4. Managing anxiety and burnout. And finally, 5. Strategies for exam day.
Let's start with Phase 1, the Aussie exam system, navigating grades and hurdles.
So, Australia has this standardized framework for grading. Now, while there are always going to be slight variations depending on your state and your specific institution, generally speaking, a high distinction or HD requires an 85 to 100%. A distinction is 75 to 84, a credit is 65 to 74, a pass sits at 50 to 64, and anything below a 50 is a fail. It's also worth noting that many universities calculate your overall grade point average, your GPA, on a 7-point scale based on these exact bands.
But watch out, because there's a massive hidden trap here that often completely blindsides first-year students: the hurdle requirement. A hurdle is basically a minimum condition you absolutely have to meet just to pass a specific course. Research across Australian public universities highlights that these hurdles can honestly be pretty arbitrary and inconsistent. Here's the crucial takeaway. You could literally be sitting on distinction-level marks overall, but if you fail a specific hurdle condition, say a practical exam or one specific assignment, you fail the entire course, the whole thing. So always read your course handbook closely.
Moving right along to Phase 2, Hacks for High-Yield Study, Training Your Brain.
Have you ever sat down to study and just felt totally paralyzed by the sheer volume of information? Like it's just too much? Well, that is your working memory being completely overloaded. Cognitive load theory solves this by breaking down those massive problem spaces into smaller, bite-sized parts. Deliberately reducing your cognitive load doesn't just improve your memory, research actually shows it actively reduces stress, anxiety, and that horrible, overwhelming feeling of having a million things to do. And this brings us right back to the stark difference between passive and active studying. We know highlighting and rereading giant blocks of text are passive traps. Instead, we need to actively force our brains to consolidate information. How? By doing things like generating concrete examples for abstract concepts, constantly testing yourself, and mapping out flowcharts to visibly link theories together. It makes a world of difference. Let's look at one specific active method: chunking. Chunking is taking all these loose, individual pieces of information and grouping them into larger, meaningful units. You break the data down, find the patterns, and group them up. And you guys, the results are phenomenal. Studies have shown that by using the chunking technique, students went from being able to remember just 7 pieces of random information to retaining over 80. It's basically magic for your memory.
Another incredibly powerful hack is interleaving. Simply put, mix it up. Traditional studying usually looks like dedicating a whole, grueling day to mastering just one single subject. But the evidence clearly highlights that interleaving, which means studying multiple topics in short, alternating bursts, strengthens your memory recall way more effectively. By revisiting material from different topics a few times, you vastly increase what you'll actually remember under pressure in the exam room.
All right, on to Phase 3, Supercharge with Spaced Repetition, the Active Recall Advantage.
See that 30%? That literally represents the potential difference in your final test results just by changing when you study. This comes from the spacing effect, which is a massive, game-changing finding in cognitive psychology. By putting optimal time gaps between your study sessions rather than just cramming the night before, you force your brain to briefly forget and then relearn the material. This cements the knowledge deep into your long-term memory, and yep, it can boost grades by up to 30%. Now, this spacing effect pairs perfectly with active recall, using tools like flashcards. The main goal here is to literally put the notes away and test what you actually know from memory. Calling that information to mind is what locks it in. And here's a really great tip straight from the research. It's far more effective to sit down and review a whole stack of flashcards in one dedicated sitting rather than just carrying them around in your pocket for occasional quick glances.
Speaking of flashcards, I've got to share this fantastic grassroots story with you. Medical students all over the world use this massive digital flashcard app called Anki. But a final-year Aussie Med student named Kush realized that the global decks didn't really align with local Australian guidelines. So he took matters into his own hands and spent months curating Anki, a deck of over 12,000 flashcards. He took the absolute best global resources and, in his own words, added personal touches to make it Australian. What's really impressive here is how Kush integrated vital local guidelines into Anki. He updated the cards to reflect the therapeutic guidelines, the Royal Children's Hospital standards, Queensland Health, and the RACGP. This perfectly illustrates exactly why localized, high-yield resources are so crucial when you're preparing for specialized degrees. Finding or even creating resources tailored exactly to your curriculum is an absolute game changer.
Moving on to Phase 4, Managing Anxiety and Burnout. Mental fortitude.
Look, all the active recall in the world won't save you if you completely crash before the finish line. If you're really struggling to concentrate, try the Pomodoro method. You set a timer for 25 uninterrupted minutes, focus entirely on the task, and then take a short break. After you do 4 of these blocks, reward yourself with a longer break. Honestly, our brains aren't actually meant to multitask. Short, focused bursts are just far more achievable and way more effective.
And please, don't ignore essential self-care. It sounds basic, I know, but scientifically, it's crucial. Eating whole foods provides the specific nutrients your brain desperately needs for memory and focus. Literally just walking outdoors for 20 minutes significantly increases brain activity. And most importantly, prioritize your sleep. Pulling an all-nighter is usually just a symptom of really poor time management because sleep is the exact time when your memory actually consolidates. Skipping it severely impairs your cognitive function. Don't do it.
Finally, we reach Phase 5, Strategies for Exam Day, the final battle.
First up, a quick reality check. Life happens. If exceptional circumstances, a sudden illness, or essential commitments pop up right before or during your exam period, remember that Australian universities have special consideration and arrangement processes specifically designed to support you. Do not panic. Just reach out to your university and apply if you're eligible.
But if you're actually sitting in that exam hall and the nerves start hitting you, try this tactical on-the-day checklist from the University of Western Australia. First, take deep breaths, in for 3 counts, out for 4. This actively counteracts your body's physical stress response. Second, say something positive and encouraging to yourself. And third, immediately start with the sections of the paper you feel the most comfortable with. Doing this builds your confidence and gets your momentum going the very second you open the paper. Which brings us to one final thought to wrap up this explainer. We've talked a lot about high distinctions and GPAs today, but true success is really about mastering the knowledge, not just surviving the exam. As you go out and implement these high-yield study hacks, spaced repetition, and well-being strategies, ask yourself, how will you redefine your academic success beyond just a letter grade? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, good luck out there.